Welcome to the Beau Show. This is my 100th episode, and I want to thank each and every one of you who are watching on NTD, Epoch TV, or your favorite social channel. I will remain steadfast in my pursuit of truth and maintaining tradition. Occasionally there are high-profile criminal court cases that really catch our attention. O.J. Simpson, Scott Peterson, Casey Anthony, the Menendez brothers, Derek Chauvin, and now Kyle Rittenhouse. These highly public court cases give us some insight into how our justice system works, or doesn't work sometimes. Everything from poor prosecution to highly paid defense attorneys to tainted evidence to jury tampering and intimidation. Last year saw a number of high-profile cases resulting from police-civilian confrontations, and as a result, more civilian-civilian confrontations also ensued. This was really a low point for all of us as Americans because the pandemic brought out some of our worst anxiety and qualities. Put racial tensions and perceptions about police on top, and you spell disaster. Coupled with that were reactions to these events and cases. Everyone from supposed unbiased media personalities to late-night talk show hosts to celebrities weighed in on these matters. In many cases coming from a position of confirmation bias. The George Floyd death and the ensuing Derek Chauvin trial brought its own set of problems, including such heightened tensions that members of Congress even joined in the protest, which led to an inevitable effect on jurors as mobs demanded justice, which was nothing short of life in prison or even death. This was so pervasive that the judge in the Chauvin trial said that Derek Chauvin, who was convicted on every single count brought against him, could bring an appeal that could overturn the entire case. The judge lamented the fact that congressmen such as Maxine Waters brought a certain level of ire and fury that would be intimidating to any juror in the case in spite of sequestration. This is what we would call mob rule. Last year, during a lot of these riots, especially in places like Kenosha, Wisconsin, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse was among the rioters after a citywide curfew and ended up in a chaotic confrontation in which he fired his AR-style rifle and killing 2 people. Rittenhouse is charged with 2 counts of homicide, 1 count of attempted homicide, recklessly endangering safety, and illegal possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18. The ensuing trial that we are currently witnessing has brought out some very interesting aspects about criminal trials, and even about how judges can use their discretion to scold attorneys trying the case. It also brings out more mob commentary, and that's what I really want to focus on today. Because I don't necessarily find it prudent for me to go over the merits of this case and whether I think Rittenhouse acted in self-defense or not. I'm hoping that the jury of his peers can decide that fairly. But just like the Derek Chauvin trial, a mob has formed, and we are getting protesters outside of the courtroom that can be heard inside. And we are getting comments from the celebrity peanut gallery. But the vast majority of these commentators do not know the merits of the case because they aren't watching it every minute. And a juror would. So they're cherry picking what they want to see. Think about the Michael Brown death in Ferguson, Missouri, for instance. Lost in that entire conversation was the fact that Brown was a criminal who committed theft and assault the minute he stepped out of that convenience store. The narrative became about whether an officer could stop him and what an officer could do in an altercation with respect to use of force. The same with George Floyd. His crime may have been relatively minor in terms of counterfeiting money, but he also had a criminal record that included holding a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach. And he also had previous drug charges. So what I'm saying is that the vast majority of some of these cases involved habitual criminals, not saints. Many times that history is not admitted in court cases as it can stack the deck against the defendant. But when a death occurs, the criminal goes from defendant to prosecutor. With Kyle Rittenhouse, you have the perfect storm of white defendant, perceived white privilege, a white judge, a semi-automatic weapon, and a mob. Here's what Kyle's mom, Wendy Rittenhouse, said.
I'm hoping that The outcome is what I expect, a not guilty verdict. But I know there's a lot of people out there who wants my son to be guilty. It's in the hands of the jury, and watching them, they've been taking notes, listening to the truth, and I hope they take that into what the outcome is going to be. Not from the media, not from the President of the United States, not from the celebrities, not from athletes. It's about the truth. And that's all I have to say about that.
She is making a comment about all the celebrities and athletes who have swung the weight of their opinions around, including none other than the President of the United States, Joe Biden, who suggested that Rittenhouse was a white supremacist in a tweet last year. However, the 3 people Rittenhouse shot were white. Biden's team made a major blunder when they released the ad last year, including Rittenhouse's image in a video montage of perceived white militias and supremacists. It was created to stoke racial tensions and gain votes. There's really no other way to put it. And Rittenhouse may even have a defamation case to pursue. Judge Bruce Schroeder instructed jurors that they must, quote, disregard the claims or opinions of any other person or news media or social networking site, unquote. I think that's a very fair way of putting it. But even Judge Schroeder has been receiving death threats over this case, according to the Washington Examiner. Here is one such email that he received, quote, Your Honor, I didn't know that under your black robe of justice, you wear a white robe of the Klan. One email read, there is no way a fair trial can be heard under your supervision. Better yet, resign. Here's another lovely email. Enjoy your term, Judge. It's going to be your last. The email read, if I ever meet you in person, I fully intend to spit directly into your face, regardless the cost. You're disgusting. Many of these people signed their full legal names to these messages. How stupid is that? That is total mob intimidation right there. And of course, Judge Schroeder isn't the real person the mob is going after. It's Rittenhouse himself. After his tearful testimony on the stand recalling the event, here's what celebrities, the role models of our society, right, said. From Rosanna Arquette, Kyle Rittenhouse is a murderer. The end. Actor Dave Bautista simply said, F that kid. NBA star LeBron James tweeted, what tears? I didn't see one. Man, knock it off. That boy ate some lemon heads before walking into court. 3 laugh emojis. Almost 40,000 people retweeted that tweet. Remember that James is someone who has taken his activism to new levels, even having to delete some tweets because he mouthed off too soon. This is a product of confirmation bias. He sees only what he wants to see. LeBron James doesn't know a thing about this trial. He just wants the kid to be convicted because he shot 3 people during a BLM riot. George Takei, known for his leftist activism as much as his role in Star Trek, tweeted, quote, if you want to see how justice often leans hard towards privilege, watch the judge in the Rittenhouse case. A deplorable example indeed, unquote. This sentiment came from this exchange between Judge Schroeder and the prosecution.
What I've heard in this trial, and by the way, Mr. Richards absolutely correctly points out that just hours ago, I said I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the defense testimony.
Don't get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one. When you were I said you were over the line, close to or over the line on commenting on the defendant's pretrial silence, which is a well-known rule. I'm astonished that would have been an issue. So I don't want to have another issue as long as this case continues. Is that clear?
It is.
Thank you.
So white judge scolds white prosecutor for prejudicing the jury, but to Takei, that's siding with privilege. And the lawyer that seems to have really monetized and profited from all of this is Benjamin Crump, perhaps this generation's Al Sharpton or Johnny Cochran. He came to prominence in the George Zimmerman case with the shooting of teenager Trayvon Martin. When we see celebrity lawyers, you know that it becomes less about justice and more about profit or agenda. Justice is nothing more than a front for activism and opportunity. The problem is not that celebrities have the arrogance to share their opinions about high-profile cases, although that is a highly unfortunate part of it. The main issue is that they do carry influence, and they know it. So they misinform and sway opinion when they themselves have not done any modicum of research into litigation or prejudice or jury selection, or even listened to the testimony. In fact, all they did was take what the media gave them, a small clip of Rittenhouse getting noticeably emotional and ridiculing it and questioning its authenticity. A representative in Congress, Hakeem Jeffries, tweeted this: "Lock up Kyle Rittenhouse and throw away the key." This is the very same Hakeem Jeffries who tweeted this: "End mass incarceration. Defund the prison industrial complex." So when it's a person of color, it's end all prisons. When it's Kyle Rittenhouse, it's throw him in prison. See, this kind of hypocrisy is all too commonplace. And this is a sitting representative of Congress. He's blatantly ignoring due process. Is that really what he wants for all defendants? Musician John Legend is a big proponent of the defund the police movement. But what happens when he is performing at a concert? Do police not protect him? What happens if his home is broken into? Does he not want any police? The problem is that by the time a jury is selected in a case, especially cases like Jacob Blake, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Kyle Rittenhouse, the general public has already been influenced and prejudiced. If death threats are being sent to the judge in this case, what do you think the jury would get after the trial if they don't bow to the wishes of the mob? That's not justice. That is jury intimidation. That is not fair trial by peers, which the justice system requires. At least Judge Schroeder has the discretion and logic to know when attorneys are not playing by the rules. The riots of 2020 showed everyone that people are willing to burn your business down, your home, threaten you, intimidate you, whatever it takes. Antifa made that point loud and clear. Even though Democratic U.S. Representative Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts tweeted that the shootings had been committed by a, quote, white supremacist domestic terrorist, unquote, the Anti-Defamation League found zero evidence of extremism on Kyle's social media. The culture war we are in right now is a pressing one, and one perhaps that hasn't been as prevalent since the 1960s. We have riots, we have Antifa, we have January 6th events, anti-lockdown protest, school board meetings. There's a lot of tension in the air right now, and even presidents weighing in on high-profile cases in a way that can sway public opinion. Joe Biden has expressed his opinion about Derek Chauvin and Kyle Rittenhouse in a very prejudicial way. I think it's prudent that Judge Schroeder told the jury not to listen to the president or even the one before him. But Biden has been extremely quick to jump the gun in weighing in. So much so that his own press secretary, Jen Psaki, can't defend him, merely diverting to the case being an ongoing trial. And so the pressure is so intense that if you were a person who felt Rittenhouse acted in self-defense, which many legal experts believe is valid, or you wanted a fair trial, you probably feel like you can't say it because of the blowback you might get from it. That type of speech repression is really antithetical to our purpose. Perhaps just as importantly, why would it be so taboo to merely look at the facts and witnesses and make up your own mind without blabbing it out to the Twitter sphere where hungry lemmings wait for the 280 character droppings of ill-informed celebrities? It's just one big pile-on. And make no mistake about it, these celebrities really do have influence, but in all the wrong ways. Because their ill-informed tweets will then go influence more ill-informed people, and then it spreads like wildfire. LeBron James is really good at basketball, but he is not Aristotle or Socrates, nor is he a sitting judge. But people listen to him. People would draw the wrong conclusions by his naive observations. Asking for due process does not provide opinion over Rittenhouse's guilt or innocence. It merely asks for the fairness every trial deserves. The problem is that you have rioters on standby waiting for anything less than conviction so that they can go destroy more property. The National Guard has to be on standby for this situation because people cannot conduct themselves in a responsible manner. They are waiting on bated breath. Elected members of Congress have tried to be the judge and jury in this case without even listening to the merits. But if you reversed the type of person sitting in that defendant's chair, their perceptions would be entirely the opposite. And that means that they are not thinking critically. They have bias and an agenda to push. This is a type of unfortunate tribalism that is happening in our country that creates an us versus them mentality. The media, the very media that is supposed to inform you, not indoctrinate you, has jumped on board. Celebrities, athletes, late night talk show hosts, they all have weighed in. The View, that god-awful show that presents only one political view, they sway opinion. They got rid of any dissenting voice. They don't desire true healthy discourse, and in homogenizing their viewpoints, they become propagandists. They tell you what to think before you even know the facts. And it's even in the way they present the story. I distinctly remember this with Nick Sandmann. They portrayed him in a negative light which was knowingly false. But they didn't care. It was mob rule. One of our founding fathers, James Madison, wrote about this in the Federalist Papers. He describes impetuous mobs as, quote, united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest, adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interest of the community, unquote. Given time, Madison felt that people would let reason prevail over passion. For this reason, he felt a representative republic was a better form of government rather than a direct democracy. At the time, newspapers could disseminate information in a slow fashion. But today, the digital landscape offers instantaneous passion and outrage, which spreads like wildfire. People, in fact, are more prone to share outrage porn than to stifle it. We therefore are pawns in an ongoing competition for games, shame, and blame. Whether you know it or not, you are a participant in the game as an active producer or as a consumer. There's no way around it. The question becomes, are you contributing to measured reason or impassioned propaganda? Has the information been tainted before it even reaches you? Do you question it? Have you picked sides before the trial even begins? These are the dangers of our society right now. And it places the fates of some people in the hands of people with no judgment or reason, but a great deal of influence. Most people don't even seek out point and counterpoint. They seek out points that already agree with a pre-existing bias. Rittenhouse is a proxy of all our worst biases, fears, and bloodlust. It can only be stamped out with the hopeful balancing scales of the justice system between truth and fairness. It works very well that LeBron James or Hakeem Jeffries are not the judge in this case, because they made up their minds before they heard the first word. So did Kamala Harris when she questioned Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Not only did they hear only what they wanted to hear, they made sure you heard what they wanted you to hear. There was great intentionality to it. They fueled the mob. They marched in the streets until the streets became unsafe and violent. They tampered with the jury before the jury was chosen. Passion is good, but it must be checked by reason. That's why we have 3 distinct checking branches of government with equal purpose, so that no impassioned entity could overpower the other. Similarly, we must have a check to the factional mob and to the media who gaslight. There's been a recent notion that to be activist is to be virtuous. Action is only efficacious if it is grounded in solid reason. Otherwise, it can be used as a tool, if not a weapon, for incendiary rhetoric. Let's remember the cool-headed wisdom of James Madison, not King LeBron James. Those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. Red, the character from The Shawshank Redemption, famously says, "Get busy living or get busy dying." I'll take it one step further. Get busy learning or get busy dying. I'm Beau, and that's the show.